Thanks for remaining with us. Liberia, that's where we're going to now. The new president there, George Weah, has started work in earnest. He has made his first cabinet appointments, all of them men.
Indeed. Weah was sworn in on Monday, marking the country's first peaceful democratic transition since 1944. He replaced Africa's first ever female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, after a historic presidential runoff election in a landslide victory over Vice President Joseph Boakai in December.
That the most effective way to directly impact the poor and to narrow the gap between the rich and poor is to ensure that public resources do not end up in the pocket of government officials. I further believe that the overwhelming mandate that I received from the Liberian people is a mandate to end corruption in public service. I promise to deliver on this mandate.
Well, there's no doubt that Liberia's new president has a big task in front of him for the next 6 years, ranging from high levels of unemployment, depreciating currency, debt, corruption, among others.
A lot, really, yeah.
All right, we have TVC News senior researcher Cyril Abaku joining us to discuss the task ahead of President George Weah, as well as take a peek into the administration of the country's former president and Africa's first female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Cyril, good morning. It's good to see you.
Thank you
on
very
the
much.
show.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay, somebody just called you Cyril Weah as a consultant, an expert when it comes to things that have to do with George Weah.
Yeah.
But, let's start with that particular intro. An all-male cabinet, no female. Okay, let's just put that aside.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. We'll get to it. Now, George Weah in his inaugural...
from there, if you don't mind.
Yeah. You want to begin from there?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
feel free.
I think I have a bigger worry. I also saw the list just before I came on the air, and I think that I'm more bothered about where they're coming from than who they are. Because so far, the appointments that he has made have been compensation appointments, basically. We saw this coming.
Especially based on Findlay.
Yes, we always talked about the question of what must have given behind the scenes because of the backings he got. I mean, Findlay was an ally of Sirleaf.
Yes.
And even when he was Senate Pro Tem president, when Boakai declared his interest, he was campaigning for Boakai. And then overnight, he made a 360-degree turn and campaigned so vigorously for Weah that you thought he was Weah's running mate. And people are saying, look, these same faces we've seen over the years, they've now come back on the stream. He has retired the army chief and made him Minister of Defense. I mean, all these are Sirleaf era people. Some people are even saying, look, go back to what Tubman did to Tobat, 1970, whatever, and so on. So I think where we are heading into is a case where, and for me, I think...
Is it going back to the past?
I mean, you go from the past to the future. But if you're not going to the future, then there's no journey to the past. You might as well be stuck in the past. But what I personally think is, it may not end. I mean, this is more like early in the day. So I think he needs to take his time. It's a 6-year tenure. I think that for the next 6 months, for the next 1 year, the politics is not going to die down so soon. Like in the middle, we have what we call pre-production, production, and then post-production. I think he's in post-production era. He's checking out all the rushes, cutting all the what needs to be cut, what track-up needs to be used, and so on. By the time he's not finally done with his team, whatever little window remains is what is going to amount to something, in the sense of delivering the goods. But I think for now, he has a hard time, trying to manage the various interests that coalesce into becoming, into making him president. Yeah. For one, I think that Weah is not the sort of radical, radical leader who suddenly turns his back on his friends. He doesn't do that. Otherwise, when you talk about fighting corruption, normally you would have heard him say, and again, coming from the CDC and coming to take out the UP, you would have heard him say that we are going to look into the books to see those who, at least in the immediate past, to see, because
well, do you really expect to see that in the inaugural speech? It really should be a speech of hope and not necessarily a speech.
Yet he talked about fighting corruption.
Not
fighting corruption, not necessarily, looking backwards.
No, well, of course, I mean,
going forward, yes, you want to fight corruption to a standstill. According to him, I mean, you're going to make sure that you close the gap between the rich and the poor, and to ensure that the funds, public funds, don't go into private pockets.
Now, even if all the money that belongs to Liberia were to remain in Liberia, that would be fine. I mean, if all the money belonging to the people were with the people, it would be fine. But Liberia is not quite, frankly, a wealthy country. And most of these nations depend on foreign aid. That aid over the years has dwindled. Because donors usually look for indicators. And now, I'm not particularly rooting for the fact that he must probe John Selly's books. I'm not saying that at all. But you know, he has taken a position, and we have to look at that position critically and objectively. As he has said, perhaps he didn't say it, but obviously he's not going to look into the past. But bringing the past into the present is a question mark. And I think that's where I have an issue. I mean, even if they're all women, where are they coming from? And even if they're all men, where are they coming from? Where you source them from is as good as what they are going to do. The recycling of these names, I mean, into critical sectors, is quite, for me, it's not a leap per se. But I would also like to say, well, before giving judgment, let me give Weah 6 months to 1 year, and let me see what exactly is going to. I mean, see, because all these people have to sit down and then draw up
a plan.
Yes, what the government is going to do at the end of the day.
But you expect really, we're coming into the mainstream for the first time. Many expected him to bring new bloods as well, because these people served with former president. And what did they do then that the Liberians didn't see that they would now inject now that would be new for the system? I
tell you what, Weah is 51 years of age. And as we have been repeating it in the narrative, he appealed to the younger people. He appealed to younger voters.
Yes.
And they said, look, we need a fresh face. This man, he got president since 2005. They said, look, this man is the hope and future of our country. In a way, it is disappointing. But I won't sit here and make such a blanket statement. It is one thing for us to speak as journalists and as objective citizens, but it's another thing for us to put ourselves in the shoes of politicians and know that, look,
it's not as easy as it seems.
And it won't get any easier. So the fact is, that's what I'm saying. The fact is that sitting down back and saying, okay, something has to give. I am president now. The power is in my hands. And like I said, he's not the kind of person who, for instance, in Nigeria, the governor, after 2 years, turns against his godfather. Weah doesn't have that temperament. I mean, we have seen enough to know that.
But anyhow,
he's a good team player.
It is obvious that a lot of horse trading has taken place, which is, I mean, you cannot not expect that.
In politics, right?
In politics, there must be horse trading. Like they say, to look forward, you must look back. Anyhow, there's no way you can actually have a clean break from the past. Okay, so Judge Weah has promised 5 key things to fight corruption, youth employment,
education,
especially vocational skills, because of the gap that the Civil War created in the early 2000 and all of that. And he said, look, we're no longer going to allow Liberians to be bystanders and observers in their own society, in their own economy. They are going to be empowered in such a way that they will be involved, and of course there will be inclusiveness and all of that. How easy will it be for a Judge Weah to actually deliver on these goals? He has a lot of goodwill right now. Would there be a danger of frittering it away? Or
5 items for me is even too much. You know, I've been thinking since last night, and I thought to myself that 5 items might even be too much for him. Let him narrow in on something, on perhaps just 1 or 2.
Which would be the most important?
Education. And then you can have those 2 layers. Empowerment, talking about vocational education, skills, basic skills, and then the question of corruption. Because the fact is that when people are skilled, they need an economy to operate in. And when that economy does not give for inclusion, does not have social justice, these are the indicators of whether there is corruption or not. When inequality is being imposed, then you know that the opportunities belonging to the all are being taken away by a few. So they need skills, and then they need an environment to bring those skills to bear.
How easy is it going to be? Do you foresee it being for President Weah? Because we hear that the youths there are largely unskilled, and they nurse this volatile sense of entitlement that the society owes them something. And that really could be a problem, really, for any government at any time.
I think on one level, you would think that because he has been involved in a lot of philanthropy, it was just he by himself reaching out to people directly. Now he's in government. He has a good heart, quite frankly. But I don't think that in leadership and in...
All you need is a good heart.
Yes, no, you need more than a good heart. And you cannot be good to everyone. Again, you can't be good to everyone. I mean, I think with time, the role will take its toll on him. And he will wake up to realize that, look, it's either I stand up and act, or the act will be on me. So I think it's just a matter of that. That's why I said in the long to short term, 6 months to 1 year, he will wake up one morning and realize that, look,
can't please anyone.
my constituency is to the people, and my legacy will be to Liberia. At some point, he will make that critical, that tough decision, that hard decision. He will come to it. I think as at now, he just wants the boat not to be rocked too soon. If you look at feelers from even his own
CDC,
his own party, some people are saying, look, well, maybe because Ellen Johnson assisted you, but you know we are also here, and these appointments that you've made, we thought some of us would have...
CDC leader got an appointment too.
No, but of course, I think the women leader was sort of sending a note of warning to him this morning, saying that, look, we are on, perhaps I said they were saying, look, we are here, don't overlook us. I mean, like we said, the establishment, the Liberian establishment, not just the CDC, there's
the coalition
not conspired. Came together to back him. So
the
back
alliance.
Up, yes, made an alliance. So or united.
Yes.
The Liberian political establishment, the political class, came behind him and pushed him forth. But he is facing the people. So he has these two forces, one behind him, one in front of him.
Yeah, and like they say, Cyril, governance is not a popularity contest, and it's not about good intentions or having a good heart. At some point, you've got to look at the challenges straight in the eye and say, look, this is how we have to deal with this. Now, if Judge Weah coming on board now decides, oh, all you guys have supported me to, emerge, okay, you take this, you take that, you take that. At the end of the day, they don't deliver. He's going to look bad at the end of the day. So would he not be better off picking people that he is convinced can actually deliver as quickly as possible for Liberians? Because, look, hey, there are great expectations.
Yes, I would have told that line, and if that were the case, perhaps we shouldn't have been talking about politics. We should have been talking about bureaucracy or technocracy and so on. Politics is deeper than that. And what I'm thinking is, I think perhaps when he's done with appointments, because right now they're all ministers designate and so on, even the army chief he appointed will be is subject to confirmation by the Senate, by the Liberian Senate. When all of this is done when he's home and dry with his cabinet and his aides, they need to come together and let him have some frank talk with them and set benchmarks for them. Because certain things are a bit too, I mean, somebody who has campaigned, who has invested in the campaign process, who has done so much, when he gets into, if he didn't get anything in government, it looked like a loss. Some people may say, Cyril, you're not talking political principle. I'm sorry about that. But if someone campaigned for you and didn't get anything at the end of the, it appears it was a loss. When it's into government, is it there to recoup what he invested? Again, that's a dilemma.
It's a fundamental question for our democracy in Africa.
You can't really do that. Thank you. I'm glad you're on the same page. So we have to put. No,
I'm not with you on that particular page. I'm with you as far as saying.
That's the kind of
it's a moral question.
Yeah.
At least we agree there's a question.
Yes.
And I'm here to give the answer. It's a question. But the fact is that, you see, they have to draw the difference between...
But is that how it's supposed to be?
It shouldn't be. So the question is, how do we cushion the impact from the campaign? And how do we now also reach out to the Liberian people? They need to put a difference. They need to put a benchmark to that.
Okay.
So
I think we need to look at this deep-seated historical rivalry, sort of, between the native Liberians and the Americo-Liberians, which, in fact, during the Tubman's administration, he had to initiate some form of a unification process, but it got abandoned. And some analysts in Liberia are saying that President Weah has to do that because Liberians have not really healed since the Civil War.
And under Johnson Sirleaf, Liberia still remained divided.
Let me give you an example. Johnson Sirleaf has been in government in Liberia since 1972. From one minister for this, and so on, until she became president. When she set up the Truth and Justice Commission from the war, the commission said all those who had participated one way or the other in the war era, should be banned from politics for 30 years. If she implemented that, it would have affected her. That's one. Number two is the fact that as at the time the elections were to take place, I think 2005, the Liberian Constitution states that you have to have lived in Liberia for 10 years before you can run for office at that level. But Johnson Sirleaf was in exile, I think, in Cote d'Ivoire or the US. So the matter was contested in court and said she couldn't contest because she had lived in outside of Liberia for less than that period of time. The Supreme Court held that the framers of the Constitution did not foresee a civil war that to predicate someone living outside the country, and so it overruled. So you see, that woman alone, for instance, has been a beneficiary of the system. In fact, she is the system
from
itself.
The division. In
a way, yes. And I'm thinking, there is no way you want to do certain things in Liberia, particularly in bringing redress and restoration, without stepping on the very toes that of us, on whose heels he has become president.
So Johnson Sirleaf being president for all of 12 years, and according to you, one of the greatest beneficiaries of the Liberian system, has she left Liberia better than she met it?
I wouldn't say.
Or
yes.
Will history judge her?
Look, there's so much that she could have done she didn't do.
Like
I find the excuse of appointing your son as Liberia Central Bank governor. Those are complete. I mean, we craft nepotistic practices. That's the height of it. Okay, that's the height of it. So I mean, that's in a corner. Now I would think that if I were in Weah's shoes, I would say that between the day of acceding to the presidency and the day of reckoning, it will be a matter of time. As a person, I cannot see injustice and be quiet about it. I will have to act. But I don't know, because I mean, see what has happened. It was unprecedented that Sirleaf's party expelled her, and Sirleaf and her people are now as strong. In fact, if before now, they were mildly supporting Weah.
They are now openly.
Openly, because during the inauguration,
some of the allies got appointed.
Of course, you saw during the inauguration how Buakai was to her right and Weah was to her left, and she hardly spoke a word to Buakai, but she was chatting with Weah all through. So clearly you've seen that even unsolicited supporters, unsolicited passengers have now all seen that, look, where is the way to go? So if he plays ball very well, he can be president for another 12 years perhaps.
So perhaps he even owes it to himself, to be a man to himself first off, so that it doesn't become a pawn.
So the question is, how much will puppeteering continue? Or how long? Will he put the quest of it? Because I mean, when you're in power, there's this we like call it the Macbeth syndrome. You are sent to the throne, and then the throne becomes your goal. No longer what the throne should be doing. So and again, as I said before, if he becomes carried away by the glory and the aura of office, and he wants to stay for as long as they want him to stay there, then he would have betrayed the people that put him there. He would have betrayed the common Liberians who saw in him a future.
Well, like they say, is the economy stupid? Will George Weah deliver
the goods?
The goods, as far as the economy is concerned, because at the end of the day, that would be the most important thing. I mean, if a World Bank official could not really do that much, but in the person of Johnson Sirleaf.
All right, Cyril Abaku, thank you very much. And really, a lot is riding on George Weah, because by March, O'Neill is going to totally withdraw from that country. So
absolutely,
people depend on themselves for peace to reign. Thank you for coming on the show.
A pleasure anytime.